Welcome parents and caregivers to Stage 2 presentation on narrative writing. This slideshow presentation is just a scaffold. It is something to assist you and help you navigate your child through their learning. A narrative has a set structure and needs descriptive language to make it engaging for the reader.
There are many specific traits every piece of narrative writing should have. All stories must have characters, also known as people or subjects of the story. These characters need explicit language to make them unique. Every story must also have a plot or series of events that occur. These events relate to each other in a pattern or sequence. The plot creates a desire for the reader to go on reading as they want to know more about what happens. Every narrative needs a setting. This is the place or environment where a narrative takes place. Settings can include specific information, for example, time and geographical location. The setting is where the story takes place. Some narratives had a single setting, whereas other narratives take place across a number of settings. The setting can shape the plot of a narrative. For example, a narrative set in a castle is likely to be very different from a narrative set in the desert. When describing a setting, we can use descriptive language. This includes adjectives and adverbs. We should use our five senses as a scaffold. What can our eyes see? The obvious and not so obvious. What can the writer hear? Sounds that depict a certain place. Is there a particular smell that is reminiscent of time in history? Is there a distinctive taste that allows the reader to be transported to a country or a special place? It is now time to close your eyes. Try and visualize the setting being described. The cracked and bare earth sat despairingly beneath the hot and blazing sun. A dusty odour completely flooded the air. The gentle pattering of rain had not been heard in this silent landscape for many years now. A collection of rocks sat lifelessly on the hot desert floor. Above them, white wispy clouds scribbled patterns across the sky. It is now time to open your eyes and turn to the next slide. Did you see something that looked similar to the picture on the screen? Now we are going to take the information that we heard and place it into four of our five senses. I can see the cracked and bare earth, a collection of rocks, white wispy clouds. I can hear the gentle pattering of rain, this silent landscape. I can smell a dusty odour. I can feel the hot and blazing sun, the hot desert floor. We are now going to do an activity. You are now going to work with your child to write a description of the narrative setting on the following slide. Use the five senses graphic organizer or simply use your whiteboard to brainstorm what you might hear, see, smell, touch, or taste. Use all of your ideas to write a paragraph describing the setting. Aim for at least 5 sentences. Remember, you are trying to create a particular mood. Could you hear the waves and the wind? See the mountains and small humans travelling? Could you smell the moss on the rocks? Taste the cool fresh river? And finally, could you touch the rough rocks and the foam on the river? Whatever you wrote down will be fine. This table can be used to practice. A character is a person, animal, being, creature, or thing in a story. Writers use characters to perform the actions and speak dialogue, moving the story along a plot line. Most stories have multiple characters who interact throughout the story. The steel technique can be a useful method of describing the appearance, personality, and emotions of characters. It is now time to close your eyes and try and visualize the character being described. Professor Palio sighed deeply as he wiped his plump, sweaty hands on his beige safari suit. He was exhausted, But he was not going to give up now. The professor's pet eagle perched loyally on his wide-brimmed hat, watching his master dusting away layers of sand. Suddenly, the excited professor jumped. His spectacles slid off the end of his nose. His moustache twitched with anticipation. "Oh my! What have we here?" he whispered, bending down again for a closer look. "Could it be?" Slowly, gently, he pulled the dinosaur fossil out of the hot, barren earth. It is now time to open your eyes. Did you imagine Professor Paleo would look like this? What examples of the steel technique can you find in the description? Could you add any additional detail? It is now time for you to work with your child and write a description of this character. It may help to place her in the setting that you have already described. A plot is a literary term used to describe the events that make up a story, or the main part of a story. These events relate to each other in a pattern or a sequence. The structure of a novel depends on the organization of events in the plot of the story. Every good story has a start, a middle, and an end. The basic structure of a story is understood by children and adults alike. A clear structure means a setting, including characters, place and time, problem, starting event, an event or issue that starts the story, which is not necessarily a negative event, character reactions to the problem and their plan of how to respond to the problem, attempts to solve problems, sometimes plans don't go to plan, consequences of these attempts to solve the problem, what happens next, resolution to the problem, often with some kind of message or lesson that has been learnt along the way. Here is an example of developing a plot. Orientation. The Sahara Desert, present day, Professor Paleo uncovers a rare dinosaur fossil. He intends to use the fossil to support his research into this little-known dinosaur. Complication. The fossil is stolen from Professor Paleo by his nemesis, the evil Dr. Raptor. Dr. Raptor wants to add the rare fossil to his own private collection. Events and climax. Professor Paleo tracks Dr. Raptor across the desert. When he catches up with him, Dr. Raptor threatens to throw the rare fossil into a deep canyon. Resolution. Professor Paleo's pet eagle swoops down on the unsuspecting Dr. Raptor and recovers the fossil. The professor's research is safe. You are now going to work with your child to develop a narrative plot. Use the narrative planning template to brainstorm the title, orientation, complication, events, climax, and resolution of your narrative. You can copy this A4 sheet onto a spare piece of paper or just use your whiteboard. Once you have finished your plan, share your ideas with your parent. On the following 3 slides, there are scenes for you to work through. Describe these settings as if you were there. Remember to use your 5 senses. On your next 3 slides, there are some characters that you can choose to use in your next narrative. Remember we talked about STEAL. That is speech, thoughts, affect, actions, and looks.